Hey there, my name is James Tells, and I'm one of the librarians at Folsom Lake College, and I'm here to help you today for Professor Moreno's History 311 research assignment. We are going to dive in this short video and use a system called OneSearch on the library homepage to find the 3 different types of resources Professor Moreno would like you to use for this assignment. So let's go ahead, and I am going to hover over student resources on the school's homepage, or any page for that matter, where you see that purple bar, and then you get a nice big drop down with all kinds of choices, and right under student resources you'll see library. Professor Moreno wants you to use the library system because we've purchased hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of electronic and print material, spending that much money every year on resubscribing to electronic material and buying new print items. So this is where you're going to go to use scholarly sources for Professor Moreno's research assignment. We're going to focus on print and electronic books, electronic journal articles, and streaming video, and we'll probably see a couple DVDs sneak in there also. So books we'll start with, journal articles we'll turn to next, and then we will end up with some videos also, hopefully, depending on your topic. Those are all going to be fair game for Professor Moreno. So the library homepage is the gateway to all those great resources. So let's do Roosevelt and the New Deal as an example. That's very broad. And as we start doing some searches, I'll show you some ways of narrowing things down. What OneSearch, that's this search box here on the homepage, is going to do is it's going to take Roosevelt and New Deal. It is going to then plug, when I hit search, those words into almost all of our research databases, which we have dozens and dozens, including lots of them that have lots of history and American history specifically in them. It's also going to search through our print book catalog, so it will look for all the print books that we may have that find the words Roosevelt and New Deal. So OneSearch is called OneSearch because it's one big massive search, and it's a great way to start your research no matter what class you're in. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and hit search, and what's going to happen is it's going to execute the search, as I said, in all those different databases and the library's print catalog. And then it's going to give us here in just a second all those results pulled together in one place. And we can see we've got over 100,000 results that found those terms together, Roosevelt and New Deal. So a couple things really quick. We definitely want to filter our results because some of our results over here are going to be materials that Professor Moreno does not want us to use. So let's first of all make sure that we also have up-to-date material. So we'll limit to the types of resources kind of one at a time so it's easier to look through them. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and move myself over here to the right-hand side. And I am going to, because I don't see a scroll bar here, if I just go over here and scroll down a little bit with this one on this side, I'll get one over here too, a little design flaw there. But the first thing I want to do before I start picking types of resources is I want to look at the dates of these materials that we have in our results. We've got some old stuff from the turn of the last century. So let's get rid of the old stuff and just look at the more current research. The more current research means folks have discovered things through time, lost materials, interviewed more people. So the more current the research, will have some new findings. So let's go ahead and click next to publication date from the from and to boxes there. When I want to make a change or make a selection, I'm going to click the box next to that item I'm going to work with. And in this case, I'm going to say, how about instead of 1900, let's look for stuff from 1980 to the present. Once I do that, I can go down here and just hit apply filters. And you can see we've dropped almost 10,000 older results from our search list. Still quite a bit over here, but that's helped. We've got more modern material to look at. Let's again go over here and hit that little slider so we can get our slider on the left-hand side to appear. 2 things then I want to show you, 2 places that you're going to go. We're going to start with books. Books give us a broad look at our topic. Books are helpful in helping us focus into a more narrow topic because they'll often be divided either through a time period or each chapter might tackle a certain aspect of our topic. So books are a great starting place to help you better understand the topic in general and to see particular focuses that might work for this particular assignment. Roosevelt and the New Deal, that's gigantic. That's too big. You'd need to write a book about that yourselves. But it's a way to start. Find some books, look at some chapters and see, look at titles of the books, look at the chapters once you open a book and see, is there a particular focus that interests you that really is more fitting for an assignment of this size? You'll definitely be working with Professor Moreno on that. As you start to focus on something, you'll want to share an email with her and say, hey, I want to do Roosevelt, the New Deal, and World War II. I want to do Roosevelt, the New Deal, and how the New Deal helped artists or writers. So those are examples of focusing down a little bit more. And as we start looking through the material, it will help you focus also. So don't freak out about that. So books, we want to start with, then journal articles, then we'll look at videos. So I don't see books up here, and you won't, except this means physical books and videos in the library. We actually want to do a search so we can get a mix of both electronic and print. So we're going to ignore that unless you absolutely just want to have a print book, then you could click on that. But I'm going to show you how to search for electronic and print books at the same time. They're going to be under resource type. And if you don't see it in the first set of results here, they don't show all the results because that would make this section too long to scroll through. So if you don't see books under resource type or videos under resource type, click show more. Boom, there they are, both of them. We can see books and we can see videos there. Let's start out with the books. Again, that's going to give us our broad look at a topic, but then also break it down through the book's chapters, or maybe the title, maybe the author chose to focus on something a little bit more narrow than our particular search terms. So books first. Again, apply filters. And for example, let's look at book 2. It's not a print book because it's not saying available at a library. It's saying available online. All of our electronic resources that you can access 24/7 are going to say available online, and that's where you're going to click to open them up. When you come in from home, I've already been playing around a little bit on the computer before I started the recording, so I already logged in. But when you do come in from home to do your research, not from a campus computer, but from anywhere off campus, when you do select an item to open up, an electronic book, an electronic journal article, it will initially, when you first try to open up the article, it's going to ask you for your W number, your student ID number with that W, and your Los Rios password. So that's the same W number you always use for everything else, and the same password you always use for everything else in Los Rios. When the library asks you for that, it's those two things that you've already used in those other places, registering for classes, etc. So, books, narrowing. Well, yeah, they narrow lots of ways. In this case, the book title shows you that this is a little bit more narrow. This is about Roosevelt, the New Deal, and the war. That might be narrow enough to explore for this research assignment for you. So specifically looking how those three things interact. I can also look at the table of contents here. And I could say, well, maybe I want to know not what the New Deal did or who the people were and what they did to push it through, but what are the origins of the New Deal? Why was it even considered that something like this was needed? And that we could see would be covered in Chapter 3. Again, maybe I just really want to look at the war. So Roosevelt, the New Deal, and Into the War, this particular chapter. So this again shows you how books can help you start to narrow down to something that's a little bit more manageable and fits the number of pages you're writing or the time limit for your presentation, what you can actually cover in that time. Again, that's a conversation you're going to have with Professor Moreno as you start to look at material, maybe emailing her and saying, hey, found a book on this, a couple of really cool journal articles that really narrow it down to this. This is what I think I'd like to explore. And then she'll be able to tell you as a historian, and knowing how big the assignment is, that's a little bit too broad still. Maybe that's a little bit too narrow and you want to expand out a little bit. But let your resources kind of guide your interests and guide how you narrow down, and then have that conversation with Professor Moreno. Do a little bit of legwork and then bring her into the conversation as needed. This particular ebook database always will have the cover here, and then you can dive into a particular chapter. You could click here. There's a little arrow that you'll click page by page if you wanted to go that way. The toolbar for this particular company is up here at the top. Favorite button of most students is the citation button or the cite button. I'm going to click on that. What's really cool about all of our databases is that they cite the sources for you. Let me see if I can get that to open up for us. There we go. And it's true of all of our databases now. Everyone will have this feature and have different, you can see here, look at all these different styles in alphabetical order. APA, Chicago, you may have heard of. We're going to scroll down to MLA because that's what Professor Moreno wants. And we just grab from the author's name to the period at the end of the citation and copy and paste that into our works cited. If we ended up using that book, we want to cite it and share that with Professor Moreno on our works cited page. Super easy. So that's getting into an ebook. Again, it will say available online, and you know that's an ebook. If it's a print book, we can scroll down here, and it will say available at a particular library. So we see El Dorado Center, our Placerville campus. I'm going to click on that title. I could click available at the library too. It would bring us to the same pop-up. This lets us know what libraries own it. If you wish to go into one of those libraries and grab that book off the shelf, we can see it's a circulating book. That means it's a book on the floor where you can physically walk into the library and see it and grab it. We would want the call number, not the title, not the author. Everything's in an A to Z system in our library. So you would want to get that E806, that full call number. You'd then walk into, in this case, the El Dorado Center Library. If we were going to go up to Placerville, we would look at the rows. Oh, there's the row that says E. There's a plaque that says these are the E's on this row. E100, E200, until you got to E800, and then start looking for the 806s. Think of the call number as the address. That particular row of books is the street that book lives on. It's that simple. So that is how you would find a print book. And again, it will tell you available at a physical place. If you see a book from another campus that looks really good, I'll scroll down here, and there's one from Cosumnes River. We could click on that. And of course, you could drive down there if you want to. But you could also click the request button to have that book sent to your particular library that you want to pick it up at. So that's another option. If you don't want to drive to a library that's really far away from you in Los Rios, Sac City, Cosumnes River, wherever you live, if it's very far and you don't want to drive, just use that request option. In just a few days, that book then will be sent via our courier service and be waiting behind the circulation counter of whatever is your home library. So remember, when you're ordering a book from another campus, or if you've grabbed a book, you're physically in the library, everything's going to work through the circulation counter, the big counter at the front of the library. That's where our staff is, and those are the folks that are going to help you check out that book. You'll hand that to them, and they'll check it out, demagnetize it so you won't set off an alarm when you walk out the building, and on you go with that particular item. That's true, again, of our print books that you request or that you go grab, and also our physical DVD collection. Okay. Those are our books. So let's go back over to our active filters. So we've got our year filter. We're going to leave that. Let's get rid of our book filter. Come on, laptop. There we go. And we're going to go up not to the resource type section, but to the show only section for the scholarly journals. That's the fastest way to get to the journals. Before I click on that, or before I apply that click, journal articles, as you're about to see, are going to be very focused. Books are broad. The chapters in the books might be focused, but the book is a big look at an issue. Your journal articles are almost always not going to be big and broad like that. A journal article is not going to just say Roosevelt, the New Deal. It's going to say Roosevelt, the New Deal, and some aspect of that. So books broad, journal articles focused, and a tight focus on a certain aspect of your topic. That's why it's smart to start with the books, figure out what really is interesting you by looking at those book chapters. Then you can start your focused search. You could limit just to scholarly journals like we're doing now. That's one way. We're going to get to the journal articles with Roosevelt and the New Deal, but you could also add, maybe I really was interested in how the war interacted with all that. So I could plug in Roosevelt New Deal World War II. Roosevelt New Deal, I want to look at how the New Deal worked with writers. How were they kept put back to work with writing? Roosevelt New Deal writers. So when you start getting really focused like that, you may find some books in a general search, but you're going to find a ton of journal articles because, again, journal articles are way more focused. So, again, that's why we're going to go to those second, like we're looking at now. So let's just open up one. So this is looking at, they looked at Scandinavia and how the Scandinavian countries started to deal with the Depression and how that influenced how we dealt with them, for example. That's what that title, I think, is telling me. So I'm not going to open up that electronic journal article because it's going to look very similar to what we saw with the electronic book, the e-book. Sometimes with a journal article, your toolbar won't be on the top. It might be on the left-hand side or the right-hand side of your screen, but you're going to have the same kind of format. You're going to open up the journal article. You're going to read it. You're going to have a citation button, print, email button, those kind of things. All of our electronic resources are going to be very similar in that you're going to have those options, and all of them, again, are going to have that citation option. So, again, for the journal articles, limit using scholarly journals only, and that will get you to that particular search. Let's get rid of that filter, and let's look at, lastly, our videos. So we'll do this to get this guy going again over here and scroll down to resource types. Again, I don't see videos here, so I want to do show more. There's our videos, 47 of those. Great. Let's apply those filters. The first one I can see is a physical item, meaning it's a DVD or maybe an old VHS tape, most likely a DVD, hopefully, and that's at Consumnes River College. I'm not going to open that up. That works the same way that the print book did that we looked at. So if we didn't want to drive to Consumnes River and go into their movie area or their video area and look for the JK M16 M35 call number, we can hit the request button and have it sent to our home library. But let's actually open up a streaming video that we can look at immediately. So again, for those we're going to see available online, we know that's available to us 24/7. Open that up. And when it finally opens up, we're going to have about a 35-minute video here, film on artists at work, a film on the New Deal arts projects. So this is going to talk about how artists were kept busy doing art, doing what they did as a profession through these New Deal programs, these economic programs. Again, there's that wonderful cite button. So if you look at the film, underneath the film in our Films on Demand streaming video database, you'll have the film above. It'll show you like a table of contents that will show you the different sections or segments of that film. So you could jump to something if you want to. You could cut out and use segments if you wanted to use a brief segment, say in a presentation. Lots of options there. You can play around with that. But let's hit that cite button so we can see how that works again. Here we get a pop-up. MLA is the style you, again, will be using for Professor Moreno. And we just want to copy and paste that into our Works Cited page again. Remember, MLA is double-spaced, really important. Be sure to double-space that before you turn that in. Most of the databases don't do that because they're trying to fit in a little tiny pop-up box like this. So remember, MLA citations need to be double-spaced. Do that little bit of legwork so you don't lose any points there. So that is using OneSearch to get to a bunch of material, specifically the type of materials that Professor Moreno wants you to use. Books, journal articles, educational videos. And that is what we just found pretty easily. The next video is going to show you when things aren't working out so easily. If you pick something that's maybe a little bit more obscure and harder to find material on, and you want to bring in a librarian to get some help, the next very short video is going to show you all the ways you can either get help electronically, so you won't have to leave home or work or wherever you're trying to do research, work electronically with the librarian via chat, via Zoom, etc. Or if you physically do want to come into El Dorado Center, Folsom Lake College Library, and work with one of your librarians like myself or my colleagues and come sit down with us there, that's always an option too. And the next video will walk you through all of that. We hope to see you either virtually or in person, and we're excited to help you with this history project. Have a good one. See you soon.